I'm Brian Wright. I'm the principal of Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative, leading a team of architects and engineers and planners and artists, all sorts of people who are instrumental in creating any new project. We've had a robust process this last week, took off for the weekend, sort of. So I've got a presentation here that I'm going to run through to catch those of you who are new up, hopefully. So for those who have been here all last week, I apologize for the repeat. A lot of times there's repeats. And then we actually have some tangible things to show. So at the beginning of the process, that opening presentation last Monday night, back that far, came in, we hadn't put pen to paper. People were like, what do you mean you haven't put pen to paper? How are you going to create a whole plan in a week? I said, just watch and see. And so I'll walk y'all through the Charrette process as well. But we actually have something to show you tonight, so you have something to respond to in a meeting play. At the end of the presentation, we will do Q&A. I'll stand here and take questions and answer as many of them as I can, as long as you all want to sit here and process. Yeah. So first thing, thank you to the church. They allowed us to rent the space, and it's amazing. So we've been able to just walk right outside and see things real time. We've been able to roam around the neighborhoods around. We've made it convenient for everybody in the neighborhood to come in and visit us. And so just to clarify, they don't have a position on the project one way or the other, but they were excellent to just use this space. So as I said, I'm Brian. I'm leading this team. We've got all of these people and actually some others behind the scenes that have been working on this to help people. How are you going to create something so fast? And when they're coming in, I think they would see we set up our office in here early, and so we're able to work like 9 in the morning until 7 or 8 at night. Sometimes that's when the doors close. We keep on working. I think the latest thing like 12:30. Something like that. So anyway, it takes a lot of people to pull this off and create something to look at. Forward again. All right. So for all the newcomers and people who are here for the first time, this is what we've done. So we started off on Monday the 28th, and then on Tuesday we kicked off a series of topical meetings, and then we had open studio the whole time. So this was that kickoff presentation, and you'll notice that everybody's sitting at these tables, and so each table had a map, and so they were planners for the night, so they were sketching their ideas, writing down big thoughts and fears and concerns and things they wanted us to know, and then each table presented their map, and all week long we had the maps all pinned up. So as people came in, they could see what their neighbors said on their thoughts for the future. And here we are in detail. People really got into it. It was really a bit of a mind-blowing experience for some people, because normally when you're invited to come to anything to do with a development, planning, or whatever, it's always about like, hey, let us show you our plan and convince you why you should like it. And so in this case, it took people a minute to understand that we were actually wanting them to give us their thoughts before we began. And so we went through, and then the next day we had these topical meetings. We talked about utilities and infrastructure and transportation/traffic. And then we talked about open space and conservation and traffic. And then we talked about housing and community character and traffic. And so each meeting, the traffic came up, as it rightly should. And so we walked through all of those specific meetings. We had representatives from the city here throughout the week, which is great. So they could answer some questions. And we had representatives from the county, elected officials as well came in, and everybody was participating. So here's our team kind of working, and hey, look, some people here. How's it going? Good to see you again. Yes. And this is actually paper and pencil. So make your first line on the map here. And so real time, we were in here working, drawing, designing If people can come in and see what we're up to. Here's all the maps I was talking about that are all over the walls. So on these maps are red dots for things that people didn't like or they're concerned about, green dots for things that they love, and blue dots for opportunities for things. So we pull all those dots, put them all in one map together so we can start to see where clusters pop up. You can see there's a big cluster of red there, as you can imagine. And so that was for us as well. And so some of the things we've heard, right? So this is the top eight here. So people were talking about addressing ongoing traffic issues on Arno, preserving the architectural charm of the area, designing with quiet rural character in mind, saving the trees and incorporating wildlife-friendly design, using innovative solutions to improve infrastructure and utilities, incorporating a few small-scale local businesses, people saying they didn't want big box, they didn't want drive-through and Starbucks and those kind of things. Grow responsibly and thoughtfully, and then people preferred lower density, but were open to smaller lots of design. So just, you know, if any of you aren't just sitting around studying what's going on in the county and in the city from planning and zoning and regulatory perspective, this is kind of a catch up. So the county has the land use plan, the comprehensive plan for the county. And one of the things that discussed is that, see the growth projections for 2040 at 536,000 people from 2010, 184,000. So it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do with all these people? And so the county went through and was looking at, kind of what's the strategy? Do they kind of have sort of status quo and continue allowing development to scatter around the countryside, or do they want to have the consolidation growth? And so they had a citizen meetings and online, they had an advisory committee and then a planning commission, and they all voted on this idea of doing the town and country, they call it. So there's a clear distinction between what is the town, sort of where development should occur, and what is the country, rural area. There's also a growth management plan. And so this was the 2010 plan. You can see it's been like this for all these years. And then this past year, after years of discussion and interaction with the public and elected officials and all the different jurisdictions and municipalities in the county, this was the sort of the new plan. So they took a lot of development opportunities, grassland, triune, they added a little bit of their sport. But ultimately, this is the map that says where there's sort of colors on the map, that's where they're intentionally pushing growth. And where there aren't colors on the map, it's where they're saying, hey, that's where rural and conservation should occur. And they sort of the way that they've been accomplishing that is they put 5 acre zoning in place, so 1 unit for 5 acres, except for in a few areas where they call villages and inlets, and they did treat it a little differently. And so all of the jurisdictions in these colored areas agreed not to annex land outside of these boundaries. Now, what these boundaries are, because you notice they're sort of dark purple and a light purple and a dark green and light green, and there is the urban growth boundary for each city. So it's the city of Franklin, it's the city limits, and then the tan is the urban growth boundary. What that means is these are areas where the municipality has some jurisdiction, and if properties come into or annexed in, these are the areas where it should happen. And so this little yellow circle is where we are. So you can see we're squarely in the middle of that urban growth boundary. And we actually brought in a map for everybody to look at because people were like, wait, I'm in the urban growth boundary. I had no idea when I bought my lot, or I knew there was a growth boundary, but we didn't know we were in it. So one of the things that I actually have suggested to the city folks and elected officials that maybe they do like a lunch and learn for realtors. So the realtors are very up to speed on, kind of what is the urban growth boundary. And so they make sure that people are aware of that just as they, whatever other things they need. Because, a lot of times people are, you get into an area, they buy a lot, they think they're in a rural area and expect it to stay that way. And so they're surprised when something happens. So I think that will be helpful. And I think I've heard that they're actually going to do one in a few weeks. So I was excited about that. Then they're also in Vision Franklin, there's a sort of annexation analysis. This is Goose Creek Basin, which is where we are in that sort of watershed area, if you will. And so that Goose Creek Basin area where we are, we're in the sort of we call a short-term area where it makes sense to annex in the near term rather than long time in the future. And then City of Franklin has Envision Franklin with its comprehensive plan, and within Envision Franklin, each of the parcels within the city and outside of the city limits in that urban growth boundary are color coded and have what they call design concepts. So design concept here in a second what that is, and then they also have the suitability analysis map where they're looking at what properties are most suitable to annex into the city. And they had several criteria like utilities, how close the property was to utilities and traffic and other things like that. And so we happen to be in the most suitable category there as well. And then these design concepts, what we have right now is the intersection of Arno and Murfreesboro Road. There's this called neighborhood commercial. There's someone on both sides of the road. We're over here. And then the rest is what's called single family residential. And so it's kind of two different types of design concepts. Well, here we are, city limits, self-development around us as well. This is the property we've been looking at. Somebody actually made a really interesting point because they were saying that they were surprised and concerned about the development occurring here. They said, and actually, she said, I've been a realtor my whole career, and when I see a farm, yes. When I see a farm, I would say, hey, this farm likely will become something else. And, but this, everybody sort of thought about it as houses that are there and didn't realize that they had been purchased. So it made it more surprising than if it were a farm. It's such a great insight that maybe a lot of people are sharing. So the design concepts in City of Franklin, so single family residential has various lot sizes, walkable, well-connected street system and designed around natural features. They have the neighborhood commercial, which we have already, is a mix of active uses, key intersections, compatible with character and livability, pedestrian-friendly, building frontages and activated streetscape, and connected gathering places. And then there's some other design concepts. There's one called neighborhood mixed use, which is similar. But it allows for some residential components as well, and isn't so focused on just the commercial elements. And then there's one called Neighborhood Green. Neighborhood Green has preservation of 60% open space on the property, and it has a variety of housing types and clusters residential uses around preserved environmental features and open spaces, and then has access to neighborhood, accessible to the neighborhood residents, public, and spaces as well, and then a network of trails throughout the so then another bit of the sort of big picture planning and regulations for the city. They have a document called Connect Franklin, which is the long range transportation plan. And so we've been looking at so early on. This isn't your GPS saying where the traffic is. So actually they color code this, so major arterials. And then they have these dash lines that show potential future connections as well. And so the city is making decisions about where to put a road or development is looking to go in. They say, okay, well, if we align this road with that intersection here, then we actually can have a regional connection that actually can start traffic issues. Or when we're looking at road improvements and things like that, all occurred, then it tells you where there's the most beneficial. Many of you may have seen the flags that have come out here at the intersection of Arno and 96. That's because they're about to start working on a new intersection design to hopefully help with some of the issues that are there. They're adding a turn lane as well, and then they do these traffic studies and things it's necessary. So we've been talking to them about that, and then while we're thinking about from a development perspective, how does that work together while things are going up? Because anytime you do development, there's obviously the long-term concerns that the neighbor might have, but the short-term concerns too, just like traffic and those sorts of things. So if there's ways that you can coordinate amongst different agencies and departments and things that are already happening, then there's a way to start to minimize those nuisances and noises. Then there was the plan to widen Arno Road. So I talked to one of the neighbors, and like 5 years ago, flags went up in the yard, and there was a plan to widen it all the way. I don't know how long we're going to do it in this first widening, but the plan is ultimately all the way down to 840. And they realized that all the neighbors on the south side of Arno had their septic fields in the front yard. And so widening the road into their yard didn't make sense, and so they had to abandon the project at that point. And so what we're thinking about is, well, we have land on the north side, and as we go through our process, maybe there's an opportunity for them to be able to pick that idea back up and to not impact the neighbors, for instance. So we've been talking about, how do you have win-wins for, when you do development, as opposed to just being a net negative for everybody who lives around. And so I'm trying to look at these kind of things where we can be helpful and alleviate some of the issues, because what we've heard is there's already a traffic problem on Arno, and so it needs to be fixed. And just because there's septic fields in people's front yard didn't change the fact that it needs to be fixed. So how do we work together to do that? So site is roughly 77 acres or so, 75 acres. Exactly. I thought this was a fun image. This was 1999. So we went through, the presentation. You can see there's construction going on here at Oxford Land. We didn't have the Hurstbourne Park here. Cedarmont was an early adopter. Albany Point has a few houses. Somebody pointed out to me because I said it was not there either. And then Abington Ridge was not there. And so we went through, and people sort of raised their hand for how long they lived here. And the longest person that had lived here was, I think they lived here for 60 years. And so then everyone who was new to town had to, sort of turn to them and say, thanks for letting us come. Because, as we talked about what is the character of this area, the character was, large farms and farmhouses. And so we think about it, what it is today, or the day that we moved in, 1 acre lot or 3/4 of an acre lot or whatever. Some people that came to participate were still on a 5 acre or an 8 acre lot. And person said, well, I'm on an 8 acre lot. It was originally 50 acres, and now it's 8. And so one of the things that we always think about when we're trying to understand the character of the community is how it's changed over time, how it grows, and what did the farmer think when the first subdivision came in, when Cedarmont Farms came in. One farmer said, hallelujah, now I can have an inheritance from my kids because they sold their farm to make that. And then how did this change over time? And so think about that. If you haven't been into the site, it's pretty wooded for a lot of it, but there's other areas that have clearings. And then sort of the character along the road is what you experience as you drive down Arno. And people said a lot, that they are really interested in keeping that feel how it is, right now. There's some really, unique and beautiful features out there. It's quite topographically challenged. There's a lot of topo, which makes the site, very interesting, to make a neat development. A lot of times when a developer sees a site that has topo on it and it's very hilly, they just clear it and flatten it. So, the path of least resistance, and we take a different approach. As we'll see in a minute. Really try to work with the terrain and add features to it. So we get to work all over the country. We happen to live here, and our office is here in Franklin, but we get to work all over the country. And I've talked to all kinds of people and say, hey, what do you want? Some of our clients are developers, some of them are working for cities or counties. And what do you want? We want something like Mayberry, in a rural area. And so you're thinking, and so I was like, what is Mayberry? I mean, I watched the show when I was younger. Reruns, of course, but I said, what is it that the people respond to? So this is an actual aerial photograph of the back lot where they filmed the Andy Griffith show, and you see it's just it's just a small town. So the people would associate with small town and that charm and that character. But most of the time when development comes in, this is what you get, and so it's quite different from that sort of Mayberry experience. Now that said, this is a perfectly respectable life, and I grew up in a neighborhood like this and played in the cul-de-sac, and all of that stuff. But it's different than a lot of times what people are asking for. Now, this isn't what you happen to have here. You take out like every other house or so, or maybe every third, two of every other house. And so the lots are bigger, and there's, it's a bit more elbow room, so you kept all of it, do whatever. This was, from, you can tell by the vintage of the car, this is in the 80s, kind of like, why walk? People were not focused on that. They wanted to drive everywhere. People weren't necessarily, a lot of times, I know there's, growing up, there's always neighbors who didn't want to see people, and it's okay, but preferences are changing sometimes, not for everybody. You need me, there's no one size fits all, but some people like this. Some people want to gather, and they probably deserve a ticket for taking over the sidewalk, I don't know, but they're hanging out with their neighbors and doing their thing. And then we're also seeing, this is not actually changing preferences, sort of changing back to the idea of multi-generational living, where people don't just happen to move away from their family forever and never come back. And, grandparents are hanging out with their grandkids, and people are, living in the same areas as their the rest of their family members. And so, but in most places you can't do that anymore because subdivisions are set up so that every lot is the same, every house is about the same size. And, sometimes people can't afford the same things at different stages in their life. And some people say, that's fine, I don't want my kids to be married. But other people, would like that. So anyway, so that's, and one of the other things that's happened since the early 80s is the resurgence of, creating new developments that bring together the old way of building. So this is a development from, part of a development from, it started in 1988. If I hadn't said that, you might have thought it was from 1888 or 1788, like a historic village. And the thing that's very interesting about it is that, this was actually the historic farmhouse originally. This is all part of the farm. These are the farm ponds. And so this house was preserved, and now it's like a civic gathering space. So we have weddings and things there on the lawn. And so here's a single family house. And then there's townhouses right here next to it. There's a garage behind the single family house, and above the garage is a little apartment. So mother-in-law suite or something like that. And so within this one block, you have like 3 or 4 different ways of living, as opposed to having it all be of one pod over here and all be one pod of the same thing over there. And so kind of the resurgence of this idea of bringing it together, which is why you see in some of those Franklin design concepts is that, they talk about having a mix of housing types and uses as well. So some of our design inspiration, the idea of preserving trees, I just mentioned this. We've got a lot of beautiful trees out there. People always talk about, you got a lot of trees out there, these trash trees, hackberry, Osage orange, and I'm trying to sort of make a push for the hackberry and the Osage orange to kind of like get a little respect these days. Like, there's nothing more rural than a row of hackberries and Osage oranges that divided one farm from the next or whatever. But in order to preserve trees, you've got to have that thought in mind when you're doing the layout and when you're starting to work on this. The other is wildlife-friendly design. We heard about the deer. People had some lawns that have been frolicking in their yards and things, and other types of wildlife. And from our perspective, that's awesome. There's no need to get rid of all the wildlife as we go. And so there's simple little things you can do to make wildlife-friendly habitats. It's like a turtle crossing here. So turtles all living on the road, and those sorts of things. I mentioned building with the landscape. So these images are from new developments that have been in the past 15 years built. And so these are for existing trees, and the houses are sort of built in the trees. And it just adds a lot of charm and character. It feels like it's been there forever. And it takes a little bit of the pressure off the architecture to be, so perfect. But these happen to be beautiful example of architecture as well. The idea of trails and parks, and what does that look like, and what is a rural context as well, and gathering spaces, or even kinds of little amphitheater and natural trails. And we notice that there's not very many, really any parks, certainly not that you can walk to around here. And, you know, people have talked about, like, you know, there's a few parks that they do like to go to walk on trails and stuff, but you got to get in your car, get on Arno, got to get on 96, and then all of a sudden now, neighbors complaining about you as the traffic, right? So we'll try to find ways to minimize the number of times you've got to get in your car to do stuff. The idea of sustainable stormwater, you know, we heard a lot of concerns people have about flooding and sort of stormwater issues, and so we always seek to find ways to emphasize and add beauty through this process, and so just being utilitarian. You know, we've got to deal with the stormwater. The city has quite detailed regulations that are going forward, and so trying to get into adding some level of excitement to what we're doing. And I just realized I skipped a couple important steps. So the idea, as I said, the city has regulations. Well, this property is in the county right now. So one of the things that we'll be talking about is going through the annexation process. And then we'll be doing process to amend Vision Franklin. And then we'll go for a planned development. So we can talk more about that at the end, but anybody who's relevant to that beginning. The other idea is neighborhood gathering spaces. We don't have Spanish moss on our site. That's a charm, but you know, this is one of those things where they preserve these amazing trees. They build with it. Part of it, you can imagine people sitting here and hanging out. And then the idea of having it be walkable and bikeable as well. Dark skies, so having light fixtures that don't light up, sit it down. So we try to do our part to not have light pollution. That's the hope, is that you can actually see the stars at night. It doesn't take any extra money to do something like that, but it certainly is charming. So housing types. Through the process, we heard all sorts of things. We heard, I want no development on the site, just leave it as it is, just make it a park, you know, those sorts of things. We heard that people were, you know, wanting only single family houses. Then there's, hey, 1 acre lot. Actually, let's do 5 acre lots. How about 5 acre lots? And you know, maybe 10. And so it's kind of, you know, going through the process together of understanding, you know, what that means, what the concerns are, and sort of what are people's sort of underlying motivation to say, hey, let's have this or that or the other. And so we started looking at this, and this is a 1 acre lot area comparison. Okay, so people say, I want 1 acre lot. And we said, okay, 1 acre lot. This was 1 acre, 40 feet wide by 1,089 feet long, right? Probably not what you meant. Here's 50 by 871 foot long, 75 by 581, 100 by 436.5 feet, on and on and on. So most people, when they say, well, 1 acre lot, they're thinking about square, I guess. But what you'll notice is this is sort of the elevation from what you would see from the front. So this would look like a very small house next to its neighbor that would have a very, very long backyard. And so when we think about, you know, community character, things like the acreage of a piece of property isn't, from our experience, isn't that meaningful to people. And if we gave you a pop quiz and we said, there's actually a book we have here that's called Visualizing Density. And it's really neat. They've done aerial photos and plan view, and you look at it and you wouldn't be able to tell what the density was in lots of wonderful places to love. Because it's just not apparent to a person unless you're looking at it and it happens to be 1 acre lot. The other thing is, we call this slicing the sausage, right? So if you think about this as sort of one block, like streets on 4 sides, these are 1 acre. You get 3.5 1 acre lots on the same size. Here you get 7 half-acre lots on the same size, 16 same size. These are 40 foot, these are 25 foot. But these lots are maybe a little bit bigger than these. And these are 12 unit multifamily buildings. So you get 36 units here on the same size lot. And so as we speak about all of these things, we want to be more precise than simply just lot size or acreage. density. So one of the things that we talked about was the idea that lots of people are interested in downsizing. You know, some people said, I've lived here forever and this is my forever house and I have no plans on going anywhere else. I do not want to downsize. And they said, but my neighbors said that they might like to downsize. And so wouldn't it be nice if they didn't have to be a neighbor? So maybe I could get on board with some smaller lots. So the idea of this missing middle you hear all over the country. And so the thought process of the missing middle is that we built so much single family detached all across the country. And when you look at it, you know, sort of on a per area basis per city, it's the predominance of housing. It's massive, 80, 90%, I'm not sure. Right? And then there's lots of large, these actually are small compared to a lot of the apartments you see. So large scale apartment complexes. And so it's like you've either got a big single family lot or you've got a big apartment complex. And sort of everything in between that we used to build back historically in these neighborhoods and historic towns, villages, and cities that you may actually go visit on vacation and you like to walk around and roam around their streets. They're all gone. So, you know, cottage courts, duplexes, townhomes, stacked flats, multifamily manor houses. So it looks like a large single-family houses, multiple apartments, and then a sort of a walk-up apartment. And so there's been a resurgence around the country of this idea of missing middle. So we've been thinking about that. And so who wants missing middle? So 59%, this is, I think it's 59% of millennials want and 27% of baby boomers is probably this downsize. And so some of the reasons people want is less home and yard. You know, it's like, oh, and everybody loves mowing their 1 acre lot their whole life, or not everybody can. You know, having a shorter commute has more walkability, as we talked about, so you don't become your neighbor's traffic that they're complaining about. Having a sense of community. So it was fascinating this week watching people come here and gather, you know, and seeing people meet each other for the first time. We live on the same street. And so one of the luxuries of having a 1 acre lot or bigger is that you don't have to see your neighbors all the time. One of the downsides is too, also, sometimes you don't see your neighbors and you don't get to know them. So people are finding, you know, a sort of greater sense of community and, you know, so they're a little bit closer together. So they have opportunities for socializing, which we know is super important for long-term mental health and, you know, longevity, memory, et cetera, et cetera. And then having a diversity of people living in, so we talked about that multi-generational concept before as well. And then it's more affordable to have a smaller lot than a bigger lot, even if the price per square foot of the building you're living in is the same. It's something where you can downsize and you can, or you can start out at your first house to work in the same neighborhood as a downsizer, and then having some nearby shopping and cultural. So we've been looking at some single family housing. You guys, it's no explanation, single family. And then looking at, you know, what does a duplex look like? And the reason I show these images is like you've seen these things before, but so often when we talk about housing type, you immediately get like the worst thing in your mind because that's usually what's built, right? So rightly so, you've seen the worst things better, you know, most often. But when you look at these, you know, you didn't notice there were 2 front doors here. You wouldn't realize it was a duplex. So single family attached. Also known as a townhouse, or in some areas a brownstone. So this is for our Boston here. Boston brownstones that we heard somebody was saying, well, we're going to do something like that. I love the ones in Boston. So that image there. The idea of a cottage court. These are actually really popular. People who are looking to downsize or seniors. So the idea of having a little pocket park and then the cottages all, you know, independent cottages face onto the cottage court around apartment houses. So the idea of having you know, one that looks like a single family house, but it's multi-family. The idea of live work. So, you know, somebody having a shop on the ground floor, living above. And then mixed use, where you would have, a market, and somebody can have their condo or apartment above that as well. So we had several architects over here this week, and they went around, they studied the historic architecture of downtown, because somebody said, like, hey, don't just import some architecture from somewhere else. So we went and studied historic parts of Franklin, and we went around all of your neighborhoods as well. There's actually one house that told me I thought it was a historic house. I was working on it, I walked up the driveway. Here is this house. And they said, I think like 1980. It's blown away. So it's possible. So here's some single family. So all different sizes. Here's some little tiny cottages that I'll talk to you about in a little bit. These are super downsizers, and sort of large, medium, smaller. Here's some townhouses or brownstones, and all of these were created this week. And so, 3 different architects are working on it. One of the architects got really inspired by the parapet walls at our house. And so you'll start to see some of these little parapets pop up. And then, the idea of doing this more simplified version, but these are the same footprints, but you can design them lots of different ways. Here's some live work buildings on the shop on the ground floor. A 4-plex apartment house here. This is actually a 12-plex. And so the way that this works, it says this is the floor plan here. So there's 1 unit, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. It has its own little courtyard. And so from the street, when you go by, just sense this, because it's right up to the street. And this middle part is pushed way back. And so beautiful design. This is a 20-plex. Okay. So there are 10 of these, and then you have 10 units in this building. It has its own courtyard as well. So when you come by on the street, you sense this sort of experience here. So anyway, just wanted to kind of resurrect the idea that apartment complexes are not a thing to do for us. So, and then some mixed use buildings here. And well, okay. Planning. Okay. So I'm going to show you a plan. So we worked on multiple concepts initially. So we had 4 or 5 different plans going, and then here's what we came up with. So what you can see is that we initially zoom in over here. All right, there we go. So Abington, here, folks were, there's this tree road that kind of goes along. People were like, hey, what are you going to do with the tree road? You're going to get rid of it. And don't worry, this will all be in line. So happy to take pictures. Be a better version of it. And so the idea is to keep the tree row there. And we've actually planted trees as well. There's a small pond that's hidden back there. But we're showing a connection here to try to find a way to allow you guys to get in more easily.
That's the question.
We'll get there. We've talked to the city, we've talked to the county, but all those questions and details, I'm happy to take as we get through the plan. You'll have plenty of time. Like I said, I'll stand here as long as y'all want to talk about this. So we had lots of neighbors come in from Abington, and so we asked them, like, hey, what are your thoughts about this? Some said, yeah, that's good. About that. Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're talking to everybody about it. So here's the thing about this plan. Okay. So this plan is a way for us and all of y'all to look at this and to understand like what we could do. And as we went through the process, like I just said, some people said, I could be open to that. And some people said, not so much. And so we test these things out, we hear. So for instance, what you're referring to specifically is there is a thin sliver of land between us and the road right here. So the city will ultimately make us stub into the road there, because they require connectivity, but it doesn't mean it has to go through. So just to clarify that. So But what we're trying to do over here is there's, lots of beautiful trees. It's kind of the most vegetative area of the site. And the idea is to preserve that and sort of work with and build in the trees. So these are kind of some of our largest lots. And they're set far back from the road here around the civic space as well. So
can you make it bigger?
yes. Is that better? Yes. Yeah. Yeah, here we go.
Right.
Sorry. We've been looking at this all week long, so here's 96. Here's Arno. Here's Albany. Here's Abington, Cedar Point as well, Cedarmont, sorry. And so here's the key over here. So these darkest colors, so this is what we're calling state houses. These are large houses. We have a mixed use center here. So remember the slicing the sausage, right? And so it's I know it's just normal instinct to ask these questions, so please forgive me. I don't mean to dismiss anything you're saying because so what? Nope. Yes, I'll get there. Don't worry. I'm only like 2 minutes into the presentation of this plans, right? So we'll get to all of those things, all of those details. I'll explain how all that gets figured out. I'll explain what we've drawn here as well. So bear with me. All right. So
when you said these are the largest lots.
yes.
What size houses? Like what square footage is it?
Well, we drew some that are bigger. This one's smaller. No. I think these are, what size are these lots roughly? I might remember. Half an acre. It's like half an acre lot. Yeah.
Have a range.
No, the 2-story, 1-story, 3-story. What should it be? Yeah, on a half acre lot, I can't imagine it would be. So, yeah. Yeah, so these are some larger lots here, getting in a little bit smaller. There's this amazing open space that's here, and so we have houses that are actually facing in onto that. Have the mixed use sort of town center and mixed housing here, connection at Albany. So this is a connection to Arno. Yes, that's what we've been thinking about. It seems like it makes sense, and we've heard from the neighbors that might be beneficial, even to the people all the way down at Cedar, because then you at least get a break in the traffic. So behind your exit. It's a county road, and so kind of working with the county and the city. And right now, I think the issue is that there aren't enough vehicles to warrant it. Even though when you sit there and try to get out in the morning, you're going like, I have a light here. So I think that we can help with that as well. So we're showing a right in and right out here. This on Arno as well. Yes, at the end. Can you just let me get through? Yes. Okay.
Am I not ever going to get out of my driveway?
No, I think you would. That's we're talking about having a light. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I'm. Okay. So I'm guessing. Yes. All right. Let me carry on. We'll be done in just a minute. We'll get to the Q&A. How about that? All right. So some of the things that we heard from people are desire for, like I said, some of that senior housing. And so we've been looking at, like a senior court here, the idea of having some senior independent living some of these elements of the town center here. Coming through, looking at keeping, we moved the commercial from the corner. A lot of people said they didn't want to see commercial when they came in. And so we moved the commercial from there into the center. So we've also shown a stub in here so that hopefully, at some point this is an opportunity to connect into 96. In the meantime, we're showing a right in and right out to potentially some alleviation there, but that'll be a temporary thing. So you get rid of that once the light would go in. So we talked to the city and they said that there could be a light there, and that's sort of a regional road that can take you up all the way up to McEwen. But what you see is, preserving all of this green space throughout the whole development as well. And so ultimately, what we end up with is about, here's another thing we're looking at. So maybe you think this is good or horrible, I don't know. So we have that right in, right out here. But there's an issue with the sort of spacing there of these two intersections. And so we're looking at, is there a way to actually clean this up and bring this down? And so you actually would come in and then go, I know, it looks a little crazy. So, and so you actually would then, the intersection would be kind of cleaned up and you come through here, the main traffic, and this would mostly just be people coming out of Cedarmont as well. So this is probably something that's likely never to happen, but we're just trying to think big picture, like how can we solve conflicts with traffic that you already have? So right now we've got about 50% open space preservation. And so we've been able to do that by clustering kind of in the center and pulling away from outside roads. And we've heard people say, hey, we'd like for it to kind of feel the same as it does now when we drive past. So using those existing tree rows to do that strategy there. So this is kind of the circulation network that we're showing and sort of stuff in some of these. But looking at those design concepts from the city of Franklin, so we are thinking that here we've got so much conservation, we could do that neighborhood green concept, which is that 60% conservation of open space. And then over here, kind of leaving it as it was with the single family residential, and then have the neighborhood mixed use in here. But it's primarily it's small scale neighborhood scale commercial. So it's like a cafe, coffee shop, those kind of things. So that you can come over here if you wanted to as a neighbor, but it's not trying to attract people from all over the region. So, yes, thank you. Yes, all right. So we're showing part here. Sorry. This plan shows 3. So we're showing a trail network that goes all throughout the development. Park here, a little pocket park there. Should all be preserved. So we all parks here. Absolutely. This is for everybody. This is what we're talking about. That you don't. There would be parking, yes. There would be parking in the development, but it isn't, again, it's more of a neighborhood scale park for all of you who are already here. So you're coming in from the existing neighborhoods. We're not trying to bring people in like this is Pinkerton Park or something like that, where it's all over the region. So we've got, parks here. There's a civic plaza here. There's a park here. We've got a pocket park in the cottage courts. There's a bunch of parks through here. Trails all over the place. So yeah, it's heavily parked and plaza and civic space because that's what I was saying. Like, we want this to be a place where people can come and walk around. We even talked about some of the people who live in Albany Point about, had you asked the county about having a sidewalk at all? Some people are like, okay, do that. That's probably you can ask them to do it. But nonetheless, if we got a light here, you can imagine that, people can ride their bike or walk or whatever. Come here and there's a civilized crossing Arno now with the light. So you go walk across the crosswalk and come in and hang out in the park and do your thing. So let's see. Yeah, so this is the kind of today bird's eye view of what it is. So this is a view kind of looking from here as it is. There it is. So you see we preserved all of the trees, the vegetation, all of this around here, kind of built very sensitively on site. And there's the intersection there with the light and the crosswalks. And I even had our artist draws sidewalk there, theoretical sidewalk.
I thought that only have a light, you had to have a light to have access to the and the only way to have that was at Oxford, but then you said you're putting it further down to the left. So
Not at Oxford, it would be at, what's the word? Oxford, sorry, yes, ma'am, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. So we were showing potential right in, right out here.
So you can't.
That's why we have it right in, right out. So you basically, you can't go left. So this is, again, that's something that we got to talk.
So you can come in, but you can't go out.
You can come in on the right-hand lane and turn right in, or you can come out and go right, but you can't go left. So that's what brings the safe movement right now, starting left on Murfreesboro. This wouldn't be, no, we're just not proposing here because right now we've been told by the city that we can't have access. An idea that we hope we can help. No, they said that there's, as far as light spacing, they're not warranted, so you would only be able to do it. Only have a light every so many feet down the way, and there's not enough traffic that comes out of here.
If you add all those homes, then all those people coming in and out of our neighborhood, cutting through, going to commercial, going to the residential, back out, I think we're also concerned about rotating. What wear and tear on all the traffic.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. There has to be a whole maintenance plan strategy for all. We'll get into that in just a second too. Talk about the details. Let's see. So this is a view looking into the neighborhood center here. So this is what that could look like. So you see a couple of these work buildings, these mixed-use buildings. This is one of those fourplexes that I showed you. Here's some of the brownstones. Here's another fourplex. Here's a plaza, park, people walking around street trees. This is a view looking into this cottage court. So here you can imagine, most of these are one-story living kind of idea. So you can kind of hang out at the fire pit and have a second floor on this one for the grandkids loft. And then you see the preserved hillside in the distance, Billion Trail kind of leading up there, will be part of this whole walking network. Get there. I promised that, didn't I, throughout this week. So, and so here's a view looking sort of in. I mentioned there's this amazing spot here on the site that it's like this secret area. It's like a depression. It comes down. It's beautiful. We get in there. And so, so this is what we're showing here. So these are houses that are sitting up like on the ridge, looking down into it, down this park. So you see the trails coming down, trails throughout. You got all the trees and people roaming around and hanging out. So these are some of these big houses that are sitting on the corner there. That's another idea. So, all right. So so next steps. So you can go online again. So go online. You can give feedback. You can keep up with this. We'll have the presentation online. Kind of study it in great detail. And then, yeah, so let's chat. Lights up. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, ArnoVillageCharrette.com. All right. So let's start with the people who were here this week. Oh, sorry, we forgot the number of units. Sorry. Yes. Yes. So, so when we did the at the kickoff presentation, we did some rough math. and we looked at, if we annex and come in and it's likely to be this zoning designation, and that zoning designation requires this and the other. And it ended up, the math was like 355 units. And I said, y'all didn't do it. And so we said, yeah, that seems like a lot. But the city has the whole process in place to make sure you can do what you do doesn't wreck everything. However, when we went through the planning process, kind of taking off all the preservation areas, all the trees, all the parks and plazas and all of the things we wanted to do, it ends up actually the plan that I just showed you has around 250 units. So 100 less than what we've done on the rough math. Ultimately, though, it isn't anything that we draw that's going to determine what the density is. There's a whole process, like I said, with the city. So you have to do impact analysis. So you have to do traffic impacts. You have to do provision of services analysis. You go through all of these different things. And, the concerns that people have been expressing tonight and throughout the week, like, hey, what about the traffic? The traffic's bad already, and you're just going to make it worse. And what I was explaining to people was that when you do development, the concerns that you have as people who already live here are shared by the people who move in, right? And so if you create absolute gridlock and just a horrible experience for a place for people to live, no one wants to move in there, right? And so you don't often think about it that way, like that you share the concerns of future residents, but that is the case. So it behooves us, behooves the city, because they have to get calls when things aren't good, to be strict on it. They're very strict. The city, like we did, if you're familiar with the Armistead project that we're working on across from West Haven, our traffic study was like 200 pages long, and like most people's sizes glaze over, but it's very detailed. And the improvements that we have to make, a lot of times you think about like, oh, well, you're just going to add all these units in, and Arno is this. Well, Arno can't be that, right? It can't stay like that even today as you have it now, right? It's slated for improvement. So one of the things that you have to do is offsite improvements. And in fact, we have to make improvements for our Armistead project, like 4 miles away at the intersection of Hillsborough and Franklin Road. All that far away. So that our traffic impact analysis said, okay, if you're going to have an impact there, you're going to increase the stacking cars back on the line, whatever. And so you have to make improvements there and have a lane, these things. So all of these concerns, like we this week said, hey, well, my water pressure. What about my water pressure? It's already kind of weak. And so we talked about how we have to go through our process, and we have to show that one, there's capacity for any new development, and two, that we're not going to be causing problems. You can't just flood adjacent properties, right? Those kinds of things. And so it's a very detailed and rigorous process, and that's why it says work in progress presentation. So don't think of this as the end. It actually had an hour ago, it said closing presentation. You know what? It sounds finite. This is the work in progress. This is what we've come up with this week after talking with hundreds of people who've been participating, and sort of our interpretation of what we heard from them. And so now we'll begin the actual process with the city, the normal official process where we have to go through annexation. There's a public comment period for that. There's a Division Franklin plan amendment. There's a public comment period for that. There's our PD or our plan development rezoning. There's a process for that. So, and we'll keep that all up online, and so you'll know when to show up and when to come. Believe it or not, especially for those of you who are new here tonight, talk to some people about actually coming to support what we're talking about in some of the things, right? Because ultimately, while most people that I've ever met, a couple of people get excited about new stuff, but most people would rather just not have growth or development near them. It's just normal human nature. And so what we try to do through this process is find what are the things that, assuming you're going to have development, what are the things that might be useful to you, beneficial to you, that might address some of your concerns? Because if we hadn't have heard this week, hey, I don't want to see commercial at the intersection of Arno and 96. We wouldn't have known to, that's where we would have drawn it, because that's the path of least resistance. That's what the city has it designated right now in Vision Franklin. We said, actually makes a lot of sense. And it would, sort of help with this concern that some of the neighbors have. People said, make it this sort of the same experience when we drive down Arno, except for not traffic and not unsafe for us to turn out. So we can do that. We can back. We don't have to, even though we touch Arno in several places, we don't have to hold the development right up to it. So there's so many things, and some of you who have been here all week recognize your ideas reflected in the plan. And for those of you who are new here tonight, I encourage you to go back and watch all the things that you missed, presentations, technical meetings, discussions that we all had that have led us to this point. Because normally, the time that you would have to express all of these things, you would have 2 minutes, 3 minutes standing up at a podium at City Hall to say, hey, on the docket tonight is Arno Village. What do you think? And then you just get up and you have 3 minutes to say what you want to say. So just think about all of this as sort of in addition to, and hopefully, for those of you who have taken advantage of it, see that as a benefit. So turn the lights up. Yes, ma'am.
I tried to get online and watch.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering how you're gonna run your
Sewer infrastructure. Yes. So right now the sewer, we have engineers on the team, but our sewer is to the north, obviously in the city limits. So we have to sort of inconvenient to do it and costly, but we have to go connect up to that. So one of the things we're also thinking about is knowing that right now the church, as you probably all witnessed when you come in, is this weird entrance. It's kind of tricky. Like if we're gonna have sewer here, I'm wondering if maybe there's an opportunity for them to part of that if they want to be. And then like right now, the septic field is where it is. It's parking. It's kind of close to Arno. So I'm wondering it's going to leave enough room for that widening that we talked about. And so maybe there's a way to help facilitate adjusting that.
and how you gonna run it.
I mean, in general, I've seen the line, the engineers, we go up to here and connect. How do can you speak to it?
No, your sewer mains, your gravity mains would flow through the internal streets, and they would go to a lift station, would be pumped up the shortest path of least resistance to the main line, to a gravity plate that pumps into.
Will you be running it out of
It would be through our site.
Right through our site, underneath there.
Yeah, all the underground utilities came out like. Yes.
So price range of the houses.
We don't know. I mean, it'll be market
It's
rate.
kind of a critical part.
Well, I mean, it'll be whatever.
Well,
we
you
can
mentioned
possibly do.
multi-generation. One of the problems is kids that grew up here, they can't buy a house in Franklin. It's more than $800,000 starting.
That's right.
The houses that you show, I didn't see any $300,000 houses. You got apartments that are probably renting $2,500 a month, but I want to know how much the houses are going to be. And you don't know that?
They're gonna be the costs, they're gonna be market rate. Now, if you wanted, you could petition the city to allow for density concessions for affordable housing.
Well, you're petitioning the density, so you can build houses right on top of each other. So you can put about houses. So that's the plan.
Well, I mean, you saw we have the different cottage sizes, we have the sided ports. That's the thing, it's like, the problem is in a place like Franklin, it's all, correct what Franklin says, it's all relative, the affordability amount. It's like, in Livingston County, in Franklin, it's hard to do anything, and the state doesn't allow the municipalities to require there to be workforce housing, whatever. So even like for us on Armistead, we have, for those who know, Armistead is 200-acre agriculture, we're having productive agriculture throughout villages and mixed use center, et cetera. But we have farmhand housing projects, so the farmhands will actually have a place to live on site there in, around, across from West Haven, but we don't get any credit for the city. So we can't even say, hey, we're providing this workforce housing, and they're like, yeah, don't tell us that, we can't enforce it. And so we do things like size, having multitude of sizes of houses, same project, having the ability for people to have some of these intentionally, these multi-family house and design concepts. So it allows you to do that, but you're
Finding any tiny houses?
I mean, some of those are pretty darn small. So what do you mean tiny house when you say tiny house? Yeah, so some of those,
Tiny house.
yeah,
I didn't know what a tiny house was. I looked it up and
Yeah.
it was 405.
yeah, so some of those we have in Armistead for sure. We didn't, I don't have any lots that are that small shown here. But if there's, in for you guys, if you really want to downsize that much, yeah, so we have, so there's, yeah, so there are garages on the houses. Some of the single family houses have, like you would in downtown Franklin, you driveway goes past the house and parking garages in the back. And then the smaller lots have alleys, rear lane, so you park there. And then there's also on those multifamily ones, they actually park themselves on their lots. So, 4 or 6plex, it's like a 75-foot wide lot by 100 feet or so. And so you actually have parking here again. And it's on-street parking as well.
Yeah. They could be condos, they could be apartments.
Oh, that's perfect.
Like, so for instance, Fair Housing Act. Can't do it. Condos, people rent to the point, people these days too, and those changing preferences. A lot of people don't want to buy. It's by choice. They have to.
So are you saying they are buying them or they're renting?
It could be a combination. It could be whatever's needed or wanted, I suppose. No, I was just saying that we can't dictate it one way or the other. You're not allowed to.
The owner.
No, the owner.
Owner.
The owner of,
Someone will buy the
the person that,
Right.
the person that builds the structure that houses this multifamily unit
Okay.
decides whether they want to rent them or sell.
Right. So for instance, we have friends in West Haven who have a 6,000 square foot house and it's for rent. They rent it out to people. There's people who live in a condo above the shop in the town center as well. All right, hold on one second. Can everyone who has a question raise their hand all at one time? Okay, great. So I'm just really bad at I start focusing on one side of the room and then I forget the other side of the room. So I like that. Did you hear what she said? Okay, thank you. Which one? Okay, yes, sir. Yeah. So we told them that we're going to do a charrette and we're going to talk to you guys first. And they've been invited. Like I said, they participated. We have people who sit here, that were here earlier. They're not still here. So we haven't told them that we're going to do anything because we didn't know and we still don't. So this is a plan that incorporates a lot of different things. Sorry. Yeah. I think it could go either way. I don't know. Ultimately, it's one of those things where, it's like, for instance, in like there are so many different ways we could have done it. We've had people that say, hey, can we buy the whole thing from you? And we said, well, actually, we're interested in ourselves. And then somebody was like, could we do your town center? Do this. So we're so early. Like I said, these are long-term business decisions. Hold on one second. So you and then Jessica, can you give me a bottle of water? Okay. Go back. So just so everyone knows, retired transportation engineer from California. So. Yes. 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 I don't know if there's one here right now, but thank you. The, well, my joke to him was, if he's a traffic engineer from California, to hear witness protection. I put a picture on that, so, yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, I was at all the, almost, yes, remember?
Absolutely.
Asking you a lot of questions.
Great. And you drew a detailed plans, I think.
So we all got the picture of Arno Road. And, you know, look, and it says a well-designed two-lane highway, it's supposed to have 2,000 to 3,000 cars. And, depending on the width of the shoulders and other things, you could have more. Well, yeah, Arno doesn't have shoulders, it's curvy, it's like, yeah. So anyway, Tennessean said it's gonna be 33,000, average daily traffic on Arno. So we know we've got an existing problem on Arno. And all during most of the people were wanting, you know, to be able to exit on 96.
We do too.
Yeah, so I mean, so they have, okay, so first of all, you got a signal coming out there, okay? And, yeah, knowing about signals, yeah, you could meter the traffic, you could hold it back, you could have some detectors up there at the intersection, and if the traffic is, you know, back far enough, you could give them a stoplight a little bit longer back here, that would bunch them up, but coming out there, but then, it would maybe give a Longmont off Cedarmont, but there's 400 cars in Cedarmont. So they're coming out of there trying to make a left. So if you get that signal, maybe that'll help, but then right away, you go ahead and you make it worse. You got a right in and right out right near Cedarmont, then you got 250 cars possibly, and you got one per peak hour, roughly. You got 250 cars in a peak hour coming out and turning right on Arno, and then those are gonna conflict with the other ones.
This is the cheapest traffic study that's ever been done for development. I don't know what the person who's.
Yeah, so the problem, I mean, on Murfreesboro, yeah, you got 4 lanes, but on Arno, you don't know when it's gonna get wide. You can do that at the intersection, but unless this whole section was widened, unless you don't have that right turn out there, yeah, all the traffic. I mean, the idea would be to get the only way the traffic can turn left on Murfreesboro, which is where everybody's going, is going that little M section of Arno Road. So if they want to make a left, they have to make that little right turn out, go up there, and make the left. So it's not helping the Arno Road problem. That's a big thing. And if you don't have, and you should, I don't know, have somebody from PDOT or whatever here too, and to see what you can do. That signal, the signal spacing, if you got one in Arno, as far as signal spacing, you could put one in.
PDOT doesn't want to see it until you actually have it in CAD and you've done the traffic study, so that's why they're not here at this point. So
Why you on it? You or
if it's part of the traffic impact analysis, like I said, there's, like, we're having to widen Highway 96 all the way in front of us. So
because I don't know about that.
they were already trying to 5 years ago.
Well, I know, but
Let me tell you the economics of how traffic works. Once you get annexed into the city, and then we would present a development plan. And then there would be a traffic study, and the traffic engineers would all get together and say, these are the number of cars that the number of trips that you're gonna create.
We should put counters out there, count it, so they have an accurate date.
And then they estimate based on our plan, the number of trips, the number of people that could ultimately went full build out. And they say, in order for this to work, you have to make the improvements, right? So the developer, it's whoever develops the property is responsible for making the traffic improvements that would enable it to work. And then they get reimbursed for that because it's public property. The developer gets reimbursed by builder impact fees. So when somebody buys a house, they pay $10,000 into the fund, and then the developer gets paid back for doing work. So it's actually these master plan developments, these bigger developments, is how you get traffic fixed in the cities, because you're right. The county doesn't have any money and the city doesn't have any money to do this work. They require master plan developments, like bigger developments, to come in and do that work, and then they get paid back by the builder impact fees. And that's just how it
Are you
works.
going to try to annex?
That's right. And none of this could happen if it doesn't get annexed.
No, but if you didn't try to annex part of Arno Road,
You don't annex roads. You just
Just the
annex
property.
properties. And so the
so then you gotta have to get, well,
oh, for sure. But it doesn't it doesn't matter. They're all connected. So if they tell us that we've got to go through, Arno, 2 miles down the road, we got to
In
go
the
do it.
county.
In the county, we got to go do it. They tell us, probably doing.
Yes, sir. He had his hand up a while ago. No, you. Yeah, it takes.
Back.
You're right, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so with, it typically takes a couple of years to get everything mobilized and going, like Armistead, even though we're already, even though we were already in the city of Franklin on Armistead, we did the Charrette 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and we haven't broken ground. So, have not. First quarter of next year. Which street? Abington.
I don't have small kids. We have a lot of small kids in that neighborhood. 35, 45 hours, so is there anything that prevent that, like speed bumps or anything like that? Aren't it? That traffic from
Yeah, so from our perspective, the slower the traffic on streets, the better off you are. One of the reasons why people speed is because, and they actually speed more so in an area that's less dense, because you feel comfortable doing. Houses are set back further. There's sort of this psychological height to width ratio on a street that happens. And so, you see the speed limit, like, oh, reduce the speed limit. Well, if there was speed limit set, it's like, how comfortable do I feel driving on that street? So ultimately, from our perspective, is connecting for sure. Not finding a way to be able to help with that. But we want people walking in to what we're doing. But if we're not connected, I don't have anything to do with that, I suppose. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so again, one of those things the city is very rigorous about is their parking requirements. They are, in my opinion, a bit excessive sometimes, but ultimately, two things. One, they have the number of spaces per unit is high in the city, but when you're trying to make a walkable and bikeable place, you want that sort of feeling of people getting to go more slowly. And one of the ways you do that is by having on-street parking in some areas. Some, like sort of over here in these larger lots, it's have on-street parking typically, but as you are in the center and smaller lot areas, just like you see in West Haven, there's on-street parking there, and it works great. So it helps with some of the guest parking. But the other thing is, if you're doing housing that's more targeted towards independent living, cottages, or senior housing, whatever, and a lot of the missing middle too, one of the ways for affordability to happen is if you can't control the price of the unit. A lot of times, people, largest expenses they have are ownership, required to drive everywhere for everything, a car per person at least. And so trying to find ways to sort of reduce that and where it makes sense when you're a senior maybe there's still a couple, and you're both aren't both also sticking around a lot of times. So it just depends on different stages of life. So yes, sir. No, thank you. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. So, yes, a lot of people have been asking that this week. The only thing that will be annexed will be property that's within our boundaries. So nobody, you have to request to be annexed in. You know, some people have asked, can we get in the annexation, but others, whatever you do, don't want to be annexed. So thank you. Sir.
Oh, it's elephant in the room.
Could there be any more?
Got the big gray area. Big square gray area.
These-
And you've got, you know, behind the church here, and
Yes.
one other gray. What's the probability into the next 10, 15 years? Do y'all project that those will ultimately become part of this? And because, I mean,
Certainly be economically in their best interest to be a part of this, but it doesn't.
I assume that officers are gained.
Not the buyers.
Yeah, so ultimately, what we have to do is, you know, deal with what we've got. But like I said, thinking about out of the box, like, hey, what about this thing, the church's entrance, and how that can be sorted out better, or, you know, having these connections that are shown to the, you know, to that the city requires you to stub into it. So, you know, I think you can imagine that
You
it
just
would-
look at the spot.
Yeah.
Almost screens. It shouldn't be developed unless or until those frontages on 96 are absorbed into it, so that you could have decent entrance and exit.
right, so sort of continuity.
That's how plan, that's how you plan for growth in any neighborhood. It's like step outs, it's interconnected. And at some point, that property makes sense for them to, you know, either they want to be, you know, either they want to sell, or they, you know, all of a sudden it becomes just makes perfect sense for them to join development, which creates that. So that's why you do this step outs, but.
Is there any eminent domain considerations?
I don't think so. No, I can't imagine. Cities.
Hands off.
Yes, sir.
That's helpful.
Thank you. Yes, you.
All right, so the property that's in gray is owned by the investment. From your experience in other communities, there's nothing that you're aware of, even if you step out to that property, that would theoretically force those people to sell to allow you to develop on that property, so you can sign the property, whatever they want to do. So you mentioned stub out into Abington Ridge Lane. So the development's gonna be city, Abington Ridge is gonna stay county. If Abington chooses not to tie in, that's still private property that has to be crossed to access county roads. Right. Is there any mechanism in place legally that you're aware of to force Abington to allow that there?
Not that I know of. And honestly, what you see is, in the city makes you stub in, as Greg was saying, wherever you can.
I mean, I can understand you stuff, and I gotta commend y'all for trying to keep many trees and greenery in the area, and especially a buffer as the Arno and 96th Street. So that it, I mean, that's one of the great things about Abington, I really feel like it's a nature island. And I think potentially this type of development or some other has some similarity to that because of your surrounding nature. That pretty area. I'm just thinking, knowing the few people that I know that have expressed opinion. I can understand you wanting to stub out that tree, and I can understand it. But my secondary concern would be if that connection is allowed by Abington and forced by whatever legally. The maintenance of the street and entrance from there to 96. Freeway we have there, the fencing, Abington marker that's at the front, the street lights that are along that road, that basically becomes an entrance way for your development than it does our development. And I'm really worried about the extended cost 10 plus years from now, maintaining that to look nice, that Abington should not have to bear.
That's fair. Is that a private road?
No, the road's counted. Absolutely. I don't agree with the amount of traffic we have coming through there, and how much the city and the county allows arterial traffic to go through neighborhoods. I've got a real pisser about that fact. But, it is what it is. We can only do what we can do. And I understand that, it's a county road and you want to connect to the county road, but the land between the county road and your property is wholly owned by the Abington Homeowners Association. And it's privately owned, and unless that is secured through some legal method, or there's an agreement to variance, I'll never say never, but right now, that's.
Yeah, well, it ultimately too, it's like I said, even saying something like this because it's an eye roll, but like the way that we do things, the way that we undertake a project, it's maybe different than what you're used to, and maybe you experienced that this week if you've seen this. And so, ultimately, if we come in and we start doing things that are only in our best interest, you guys are just like, like, I don't know, it's just not being a very good steward neighbor, so, I mean, it's the best I can tell you for now. But what you do is you have development agreements, if you guys agree to this access, obviously there would be a whole wish list of things that you would like to see. So,
Better design. The county will provide eminent domain.
No. No, we drew that connection. Exactly. The latter. Yeah, we drew that connection so that you guys could see, here's what we're thinking about. What do you think about it? Yeah.
It wouldn't be required based on the circulation. Like to connect with that, based on the number of houses in that little sort of cul-de-sac. Of that.
Hypothetically, is there some state highway 96 regulation that keeps you from taking that road and just going straight up to, because that entrance is what's our entrance?
Yeah. Yeah, you got the entrance out. It's been in the back. No, sorry, wait, hold on, in the back. Okay. This is right in, right out. Okay. Hold on. You already had one. Anybody who hasn't had one? There we go. Thank you. Yes. I think, ultimately, we see that connection as in our minds. When we first drew it, we're imagining, wouldn't it be you guys coming in? It wasn't about people coming from 96 because there's a light at Arno already. There's a light in the middle, but it's more so about you guys coming in. So, it's like having that connectivity, being able to cluster our stuff and preserve all those tree rows and things. We're just kind of thinking about it as there isn't a hard, calculable here's what's in it for you, except for that easy access connection. Assuming that you thought that the neighborhood center was a beneficial thing to you.
Remember, as much as gentleman doesn't like traffic to be cutting through your neighborhood, it is a public road, and the county and the city, they want connectivity because because connectivity alleviates traffic. Because it creates alternate routes. That's the whole purpose of the circular system.
Oh, and I forgot the other big reason is I sat there at that intersection and tried to turn left.
Right.
And I was like, holy cow, this is so unsafe. Like, what a horrible experience. So what we were thinking is if we could give you guys a way to come in and to find, instead of having to go all the way down from that Arno, to come all the way back up, you can actually sort of more conveniently come through.
To get to 96.
Well, we can go out through Arno.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You said that exit, so bad, turn left. You said it's C1.
Yeah, I've heard the same, yeah.
I mean,
Right.
and there's no overrun. Well, that was going on. That was our little. Yeah, no, I mentioned that, you're try to help, but all traffic on in reality. So, because right now you've got a hub in a right in, right out.
What'd you say was
Everything else comes on.
What'd you say was 33,000 cars a day on Arno? Is that what you said?
33,000.
33,000. All right. So we're adding. So we would add 200.
Okay.
300.
Improving Arno process. Well, that like that.
Well, we have to.
But in reality, you're adding miles down the street, down the street, down the street. So traffic study is talking about that. What we live with on Arno is everything.
No.
So
The way the traffic study works is you have to take the background traffic, which is what we call like today's traffic. Then you have to add your traffic into it. And then they're projecting also what else.
years ago, this one.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So it's in the overage road map.
That's 2010.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're putting on your traffic on Arno. Get one see on people who live down Arno. It's not a light car. You're not on. Y'all know
We
it.
can wait for the traffic study.
No, and
Somebody's gonna develop that problem.
And if the traffic study says we can't do it, we can't do it.
I don't know if you know it, but I don't like it.
There was never a, I don't think we came in here with the impression that we're gonna win you guys over. You guys are gonna love this development. So you're gonna start.
It's not happening anyway.
So if there's going to be development, shouldn't it be smart growth? Shouldn't it be one that is thoughtful and actually additive to the community? That's what we're trying to create a vision. What defines density and traffic and all that kind of stuff? That comes with traffic engineering. That comes with we have to prove, or ultimately whoever develops this has to prove that they are actually mitigating traffic. It is how improvements get done. It is how public improvements get done. Is through the private development, spurring it on, because you're right. The city doesn't have money.
So with that, I'm sorry, everybody else has got a question. But with that, if you had a wish list, money was not a problem, how would you relieve the traffic on one? How,
We would.
I mean, if we say we're gonna make Arno better, you've got all the people that live on the south side of the development. How do you make it better? We can get out of our neighborhoods, out of our houses. If you had, I mean, other than like
The
bridges and tunnels.
The plan that we first had was to reroute Arno up straight through our site and create. And right. But then if we did and to reroute it this way, to go up there, but the city wouldn't let us. So we said it would never happen.
And why is that?
That's a great conversation.
Yeah. No, 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 no. No, this property is not part of our project at this point. And so that's why we have the road stopping right here. It'll be awesome when it cuts through. That's the,
Ultimately, when that changes hands, that's gonna be the best use of that property.
oh, sorry, yes, thank you. I know what you mean now. The city said that we can't connect 96 except for there in line with that road to the north. Because it's a multitude of factors, but one is spacing between the Arno light and where the next light can happen. So there's apartments where the lights can't be so close together. The other thing is that yes, so that's a regional road. Thank you. It's a regional road, takes you all the way up to Cuban. Yeah, so that's where they.
Think about lights, curb lane.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have happened over the years that the city says, well, we wouldn't do that again. So I don't know if it falls into that category. So it's failed. We cut down to where? Oh. Yeah, so you're thinking that there are people that cut through the South Brothers through Cedar.
They do. Like, there's a back end of the
Southwest.
Cedar Mont.
One of the neighborhood, I don't live in. Yeah, southwest off here.
Well, and so that now you see why the city wants there to be connectivity, because the more connection points you have all around, the better off, traffic gets distributed. Because ultimately, not everybody wants to go a certain direction all at one time. But if you start to funnel them, it starts to be problematic. Hold on one second. Yeah, this is the first time that I've thought about this project coming through your neighborhood. So like, that's something that we're gonna have to scratch our head on.
That'll certainly be something that traffic, and that's really an impact that they'll determine. But the fact is, it's a public road, and public roads are meant to be connected to other public roads, which is the circulatory system.
Yeah. So. That weird looking thing that popped up there. So we're looking at it. It's tricky, but there certainly is. Right now, Cedar Mont already is kind of close to Arno Road intersection, which is why you have that sort of backup that you have there. So we're trying to figure out as a way that we can help solve that problem. Yes, sir. Yes, you. Oh, 1 second. Come back. Yes, sir. Yeah, no, what we've shown right now are like small scale commercial spaces. So there's like, like that.
You imagine like an urban market, if you're talking about a grocery function.
Maybe.
I think we were showing like 8 or 10,000 square feet total.
Yeah, not that many. So. But what? I'm sorry, I missed the first part you said. To some extent, I mean, there's, I think probably a lot of people go to Starbucks more often than they go to the grocery store, but it's a fair point. So, yes, sir.
A lot of discussion.
No, so no.
Let's see.
I call.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll tag on to that and say thank you. I think you have listened to us in some respects. I know we can't talk a lot about this traffic. Getting the commercial off of the corner of 96 Arno Road. It's a win-win for us, I think. When will we know when there's a final plan that's going to Bona? And then will the city of Franklin make you put it on that corner since that's where they told you to put it?
Yeah, so we'll make sure that y'all know when we're going for all our steps. And that's one of those things, like you may come out and say, well, we don't like anything else about this project, but one thing that we're all on the same page about is moving that. That's one of those things like this, just see an elected official, like go through a whole process and then like meet up a developer or whatever and do this and change that, whatever. And then all of a sudden they're like, they vote no. You're like, the reason is because there's a 50-50 chance, right? It may go through, it may not. And so ultimately, on the chance that it goes through, at least it goes through with all the stuff that you wanted to be in it, and so you can come and support it, while not supporting it.
How will you contact us? How will we know? Because I know a lot of people until last week when we had your trip, had no idea this was going on, except it got out through next door neighbor and whatever. And
Yes, we posted all that. We send that all out to all that.
So we hired a PR firm, said, hey, please get the word out. We put social media advertisement out there, and we got the press to be here. The press is here tonight, so they're gonna do that. We do the same thing. We also have, signed up.
Your sign-in sheet, so we'll email you
So
guys.
we'll let you know. This is the idea, is to be inclusive, and, it's as much as you may not believe us.
Comment section, because I'm a lifelong resident. I grew up in downtown Franklin, very challenging to see them all. But I think our envision, Ramsey County, is not the same envision Franklin. As it's grown, so it hurts us to get these things thrust on us, moving out in the county, our area, destroying the character of what we. I've been to the Bona meetings, and you're right. You get up there, and it's like 2 minutes, and you make your point. You're shut down, right? But I don't understand. Is there a comment period we're allowed? Because we're not really represented. We're not citizens. We're not voters in Franklin.
Yeah, I believe that you come in to ask you your address, but I've never seen them say, oh, sorry, you're not the city citizen. So I think you can.
No, but I mean, is there a process before that where
You can write, you can email, you can email the.
there's not a public thing where we. That's what this is for. Well, I know, but this is not the final plan.
Oh, yes. So part of our process, we have a little bit, there is a requirement for one neighborhood meeting. Where, so thank you. So that will be a part of the official process, actually, too. Yes, sir.
My first time here,
involved. One of the, I kind of expected the layouts like they were. One thing that really surprised me, knowing that this major road up here 96 is flip flop. Like I'm in the second house on Albany Drive, part of my yard on the Arno side and backyard, and I really expected all the commercial or mixed use to be up on 96. Already got that commercial, you got their wall right down that way, et cetera.
There's no in and out.
So, that's the one biggest surprise that concentrated all right here on Mondays.
Yeah, when the city, any city does their comprehensive plan for the future, they look at things like, I was reading out what the criteria were for that neighborhood commercial. It says, at a major intersection. So it tends to, like, that's nodes of commercial used to happen. Need and feet, first thing that ever came in was always at the county road this, so wrote that. So that was sort of logically how it happened. But today, because the commercial development pattern is so much of this sort of suburban style strip mall and all that stuff, that it's just sort of long and linear. So the city is trying to get back to a way of doing things. However, like the roads themselves, like 96 isn't really a charming little road, is it? And so, like they actually require us to face onto 96 as their first charming street. And
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive with all the 96, especially now that it's 4 lanes, nice and long. I think that's where you want to have they want it to commercial and have, wants to be living on a raceway up there.
right, well,
Commercial visibility up there.
normally you would.
Selfishly, I don't want that right across.
Yeah, so normal commercial, you're absolutely right. Like normally a business would not locate unless that's 3 trips per day, drive past their shop. The type of commercial we're talking about isn't dependent on that. It's more so it's an amenity. And so like the coffee shop, like it wouldn't be a Starbucks. It wouldn't have a drive-through. It's more about people who live here, surrounding neighborhoods kind of coming in and patronizing small scale. So it doesn't need that visibility. You know where it is. And in some ways that's kind of better why it's charming. Oh, no, definitely.
Wildlife earlier.
Yeah.
I've lived in that bridge for 20 years. One of the things I like is calling our deer and alter. Have you consulted with wildlife experts and how this is going to impact where they're going to go?
Yeah, not yet. So the anecdote that I always give is driving through West Haven, the rabbit density per block is shocking, right? There are rabbits everywhere. The armadillos scurrying around in the alley there. And then, if you've ever been in there, there's a big clubhouse and there's a park in front of it. And I was coming in at 9 o'clock at night and there were like 8 deer standing in this like half an acre piece of green space, a couple of trees around, and I guess they were just munching or, maybe they're socializing because it's a nice gathering space. But nonetheless, they're there. They predominantly, stay in the hillsides. So for us, you do the best you can. A lot of this down here, I think is undevelopable ultimately. And so, probably what happens is, they stay in these areas, but what we're trying to do is keep a contiguous wildlife corridor through. But ultimately, if you put a house where maybe you take that at night, it moves over. But,
They've had all of this property and now they're going to have that.
absolutely,
Same as every development get on 96.
not. We don't have many deer out yet outside of West Haven, so. Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting about this is because we aren't just the apartment complex, whatever, it's quite challenging scenario. Like, when's the last time you saw a fourplex, sixplex, 12plex apartment house get built anywhere, right? The reason that people don't do that anymore is because the efficiency of doing that it's just much less efficient. It costs a lot more to do it. Sort of providing the utilities, maintenance, and all that stuff that any multifamily would do. Like it just doesn't work like that. So the single family also, like the idea of building within the trees right here. The reason why people cut down all the trees is because that's the easiest and quickest thing to do. And so what we've done, while you may go, it's a lot of development or whatever, it is it's quite unique and will take time to do it, likely. But ultimately, yes, phasing is the way that you do it. We got to also keep up with the infrastructure, right? And so as we go through any phase, you have to make sure you provide adequate infrastructure, you deal with your outside impacts, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know how long it would take.
No idea what, look. It's gotta you gotta update the envision framework. You gotta go in and get it. So, I mean, I don't know, how long did it take Abington? 4 or 5 years, yeah, But these are, but this is about, this is not much more than 100 lots, 90 lots or something like that. So it's the same construction, sort of pace and scale as any development. You got a half-acre lot. We're either going to put a half-acre, put a house on it, or we're going to put a mixed-use building on it, or
Right, I didn't figure you guys were interested in me saying here's how many lots we had, right? And so I was, the number of units seems much more. So it's
possible. Clarify on that, so that connection. I know I was at another here, Let Park. They weren't connecting it to 96. There's Ridgeway there, just down the road, Ridgeway, and they were going to have an emergency connection to indirect Ridgeway. Right. So they had the fire department or whatever. So something like this, I mean, that's a possibility that fire department might look at where these houses are. It's like, well, I don't want to come in there and drive around, drive around, it's gonna take too long. So they might want to get in there. Might be able to put a emergency like fire department.
Yeah. Craig just said maybe they need a spot for a fire station.
How many residents to build a fourplex?
No idea. I mean, you just imagine, so it could be all singles, it could be all couples, it could be all, like it is.
Okay, well, how many fourplex?
12 plexes. This shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
And how many, what else?
Oh, yeah.
Again, remember, guys, I know we're just trying to show you what this kind of density looks like. The density is going to be controlled by the impacts and our ability to market, plan of services, and all that kind of stuff. So I can almost guarantee you that the density will change, and it will also ebb and flow, and it'll happen over time. So we have to prove that we can do this properly, or that whoever develops this can do this properly. What we're trying to show you is a vision for what this kind of density could look like, as opposed to 350 single family homes all in big ones, right? 250. Yeah. 250 dwellings. Yeah. And so I think there were 60 or 70 family homes, no more than that, maybe 80 single family homes, some townhomes, stuff like that. So.
But it goes back, so one second, it goes back to how you slice up the sausage. That's why I showed that image. So it's like, if we had done, more of this brick color instead of this yellow, then it would have been some more units, So there.
So
We have to deal with that as well.
we have to pay. So whoever puts a unit in has to.
No, everything is county school.
You have to pay, there's a school impact fee. It's a separate fee that goes directly to schools.
As the city residents go to county schools.
Wherever we impact, wherever our kids would go, whatever it's zoned for, they get the money that happens. Can't control that.
So
Curious about homestead.
there now?
Okay.
And, yeah.
No, what properties that houses. Just curious. How many are there now? Because it's gonna be the net that's going to be at. Those people. Next question that I have. is, you know that you're gonna have to talk with some means of managing this stuff. How many HOAs you're gonna have? What things and all that, because this is, that's part of it. When you build it, damn, after a few years, you start having problems with each other because you did this to the road. But there's gotta be some governance that's submitted by you guys. Whoever's gonna be the governing it.
It's not us.
Yeah, definitely. There, you have to have the HOA, because like I heard one of your HOA says it's like $350 a year or something, and it pays for the, plants around the piers or whatever. It's not like that. And that's one of the reasons why people live in the county a lot of times instead of the city. It's, the HOA structure for a development like this is quite advanced. So you'd have, something for the village center area, something for all of it, but specific regulations for commercial parts of it, and all of that stuff, but certainly has to be thought about. So it's.
So I understand once somebody buys a property, you can't sell it. You have to buy the whole, you'll have the option, people have the option to buy one of the units. and then
Yes.
the six months of-
Yeah, so once it's built, and whoever built it, that person that built that lot, that building, that has 4 units in it or 6 units, whatever, then they have the ability to sell them or rent them or whatever to individuals.
Okay, so there's not one builder and they're doing everything. Not know.
Yeah, so typically, like a lot of times, the builder that would build single family houses isn't the same that might build a townhouse, whatever, or not even the builder that builds.
I assume it would all.
There will be a master developer that is sort of make sure that there's a cohesive, and it's kind of like the HOA would do ultimately, but in the meantime, so putting in the roads and all that.
But they'll have to be here to like the architectural.
Yes,
design.
correct. Yeah, yeah. So for instance, in Armistead, we've got a architects guild, so we've applied to be on it. We have a builders guild. We have very design called pattern book or design standards, very detailed. Yes, ma'am. Here? No, those are little trail like paths.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yes. I've been pretty quick on it. So tomorrow? Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes. No. Sure. Tell us which ones are the bad boys. Yeah, so, that's back to that idea of the complexity of this project. It's like knowing that a lot of the things that we have shown here have a rear alley Where do you have those in the city of Franklin? You have historic downtown Franklin, you have in West Haven, you have in Dairy Farms. So the builder, McKay's Mill, okay, so, you know, the builders that they have product for that already are the ones who build in those kind of neighborhoods as an example.
So, about how much, what percentages? Um,
Acres would be the whole mixed use town center. So a fourth of it.
19%.
But that's, it also has townhomes.
Right.
In there too.
Oh, that's in the 19.
Yes. 6% of single family.
You know how much, like, I'm looking at the part on the right, below where there's. How much? That's all.
Yeah, we had units over there originally, but then we took them out because if we do this with that village green, neighborhood green concept, that's where it has that 60% conservation requirement in there, and so we're gonna.
That where the cave.
No, we don't have a cave on it, as far as I know.
We'll find it when we do
Yes.
this. So essentially what you're seeing right here is 50% open space all told. So of the 75 acres, it's just about, it's 48-point-something% open space. So I mean, that's just one of the benefits of a master plan development versus a just, all right, let's just annex this thing in and let the market come jump in and let it take over.
So it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. Like, so if somebody comes in and they're like, oh, we've got this little piece here, we want to do something, and then they do something. And you're like, oh, that's not that much. Okay, no problem. Then they down the road, then another piece on the road, they're like, oh, pack it in. Next thing you know, you're going like, oh my God, you know, the city requires 5% open space.
How far down Paddington Ridge Lane is that? All that, how far down Paddington Ridge?
Our parcel stops, you know, kind of right in here. Like the green space goes farther.
AI generated.
Yeah, whatever we come up with in AI. No, yeah, no, you know, in a project like this, you want to have, you know, again, we're looking at the historic precedent in Franklin. In Franklin, you've got a mix, you've got brick and stone, you've got, back then, siding, but today we use hardy board, whatever, that looks like wood. So there's a mix, but it's, I can't imagine, you know, that we have beyond those.
If you're trying to sell homes in Franklin for what you have to sell homes to make money on them, they've got to be able to use materials that are long lasting.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny you say that. And in one of the, yeah, I'm glad you said that, because in one of the pictures I had of building types from another community we were working in, there was a picture of a single family. And exactly what you said, it was a brick on the front and then turn the corner. And I was like, nope. I deleted that slide because I was like, that's not. Yeah. Well, in historic house may have had the main building be masonry, and then an addition on the back would have been siders. That's normal, but it wouldn't have stopped 6 inches from corners. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes. the market to some extent, but because we're not trying to just do like this as a normal commercial deal and see more community, like for instance, the developers of West Haven are doing a new project in Nolansville. And they said, you know, we won't do another development. Yeah, thank you, appreciate
Thank
it.
you, guys.
They won't do another development that doesn't have at least a coffee shop and a little corner cafe. And so they're doing, oh,
Because I know in West Haven, they have a lot of those.
yeah. There's a few, but we have a lot more commercial space in West Haven. So you like the cool stuff already got eaten up and then sort of the more boring stuff, which is useful though, you know, so yes.
Thank you.
It's an amenity.
You know, there's a little coffee shop in Baker's Court that is, you know, it's run out of a little, yeah, because what I'm saying is that, you know, these type of amenities are generally like, you know, they're subsidized by the person that wants people to move into their community. So you don't necessarily, it's not a straight market, situation.
So like, for instance, there's a developer called LC Communities, I think, and they do like small apartment complexes, but one of their things is they always have their restaurant, they call it, and there's always like the fitness center that's part of that storefront, whatever, and they see that sort of as entity, just like you have, you know, bocce club or whatever.
Yeah,
Exactly, that's what we're talking about here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I keep coming back on traffic. Just to give you my, go back, yeah. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I mean, the bottom line, I think, as far as traffic, like selling this, as far as traffic, you know, all the people are complaining about the traffic on Arno. I think if you had a signal up there at 96, and it makes the whole thing different, because cars, you know, Arno, go through that property, and make a right, they don't have to go all the way. You're gonna shut some of those off. You're gonna have most of the people going out 96. Now, the 33,000 cars and the school traffic and everything, and how hard it is to get out of Cedarmont, you got 400 homes that are, that's like 400 peak hour, that's 400 peak hour trips coming out of Cedarmont. And then right next to it, you're gonna have people exiting that development. 250, 250, so you could have 250 cars coming out of there in the peak hour. So that's gonna make that worse. I mean, the only thing that you could do to help sell this is to say that we're gonna widen Arno Road down to that signal. We're gonna have 2 lanes in each direction, east side of that signal, and handle the increased traffic. Yeah, if it's still gonna be 2 lanes, you're gonna dump all that traffic there from the development on Arno and out there.
I would fully expect that whatever the traffic engineer that gets a hold of this plan, whatever we put it in there to say that we have to widen Arno Road to at least put a center turn lane and some decel lanes and all that kind of stuff. I would fully anticipate that, but it's just not our call. It's just, you know, we don't draw that stuff because it's a public road and it's just dictated by what the traffic engineers tell us we have.
Which is why we don't solve all the traffic problems during Charrette, right? So we create the plan, then we actually, unfortunately, the engineers won't work real time like the planners. Engineers think about stuff. They have to think about things.
Can't take the word of an LA traffic.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so we gotta sort it out. So we acknowledge it's an issue. Like I said at the very beginning of this, the whole problem is the same problem that anybody who might move into the cell will have. And you can't just make it worse and think it's gonna be a place that anybody wants to be. So that seems counterintuitive because you're like, well, you're adding more people. And it's like, yes, we have to account for that. And all this stuff has to be fixed.
And that's another thing that often happens. It's like they'll say, yes, we like this concept. You can have this, except, however, until you make this connection, you can only have 50 units. And then, or when you add this connection, then you can have another 80 units. So that's just how they sort of throttle, development pressure over time. Again, that's really not up to us. It's just, we're trying to create a vision for something that might be good for the community, or at least, and also be a profitable thing, for the owner, right? I mean, it's an asset.
He was here. The Harmons have lived in that property for over 60 years.
So that answers your question.
And and they will be there.
60 more.
He was here. Yeah. They've been there for over 60 years. It's a family.
It's a mom and her
mother
two
who lives in
sons.
the middle and two sons on each side. They've been there for more than 60 years. They're not selling. They won't.
But they can't be here for 60 more.
Possible. He was here.
On traffic engineering at all?
I'm sorry?
You meet with the traffic?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's an ongoing. Yes. Yep.
It is a known issue. They talk to us about it.
Yep, absolutely. And actually, I know that some of the aldermen in Franklin, that's like their hot topic is, they want to get that sorted out. So, yeah. Yeah, it's tricky for sure.
It's basically West Haven. Just take it, East Haven.
No, West Haven has about 3,200 homes and about 50,000 square feet of commercial.
It's a bigger area too.
It is, for sure, for
But
sure.
it's the same concept.
Very different. Yeah, very different.
For sure. So, all right. So I have no more hands that are shooting up. So that's good. Hopefully nobody left because I didn't call on them. And this is how it goes, y'all. Like I know, especially for the newcomers, you go like, what's going on here? But stand here and field these difficult questions until there are no more. And we'll be carrying this through the whole process. Stick with us, hold us accountable, come participate. Like I said, if there are things you like, let the city know so we make sure that we can do them. Even if you say, oh, big picture, I don't like the project, but if you allow it, do this. Yeah, so the next step is for us to sharpen our pencils on this and really get down to the details. I mean, we drew it all to scale and all that stuff. And so, but now ultimately we have to look at it and see like, okay, well, does this make sense financially? Like Craig was saying earlier, there's a whole bunch of different factors that go into what happens on the site. And, some of them are obviously neighborhood input. Some of them are, like the cost of the land versus what we're able to reasonably put on the property, et cetera. So you may go, okay, well, we need to tweak this. We have, too much commercial, whatever. It's from the city. Yeah. So Jessica, can you kind of walk us through what the annexation?
This being an urban growth boundary, it's more, and as one of the most kind of suitable areas for development, makes on a vision Franklin, that's probably likely, but still have to go through that process. So they'll be in September and October, there'll be FOMA meetings for the annexation initiation process. Then also in the fall, we'll look at submitting for the plan amendment, that envision Franklin amendment. So move that design concepts. So that'll be in the fall then to look at that. And once that goes through, then we can finally submit, then it would be for annexation and a development plan or like a special zoning district that you would do for the property, and that would be then sometime next year. So it's a very long kind of process that we're just.
It's probably gonna be next spring or so.
Oh, even longer. That would be starting the process for annexation and zoning would be sometime next spring. And that's just the timetable right now, like things that like as we're sharpening pencils, so that's just like kind of our initial timetable.
Things tend to take longer than you expect.
Yeah, it's never gonna speed up. But all of a sudden we're in. Like it's always like, oh, it took us another 6 months to do this.
Where you're starting.
Yeah.
So now I understand that it's gonna be next year before.
Right, yeah, no, that's a, I just realized why people are asking that question a lot, because a lot of times, first time you hear about a project is just a few months before the bulldozers show up.
Right.
Ah, okay, so we're all like, why are you so worried about
We're like,
nothing?
we got
Okay. I get it.
long-
Yes, yes, yes,
You made it like.
yeah. Yeah, because there's some steep slopes. We try to stay away from them and all that, but some it's, you know.
I just want to tell you that there's 2 more homes for sale on our street this week. And
Oh, I'm glad you said that, actually. I should have said this at the beginning when we had a packed room. Somebody made the comment, oh, you know, I need to look, see what you're gonna do on Tuesday night so I can know whether or not I need to put my house up for sale. My advice to him was, wait until we go through this process. And if this happens, as much as y'all may not think it's the thing that you would like to see in your neighborhood, near your neighborhood, the people who would be interested in buying in your neighborhood will see this as an amenity, and it will increase the value of your properties. Just like people don't want a trail behind their house normally, and then when they go to sell their house goes first because they're right on, oh, we have this new house, right on the trail, I love it. And they fought against the trail the whole time before they, you know, so don't make hasty decisions just yet.
well, they're already doing it.
Okay, fair enough.